Protect your DNA. BioPQQ can promote formation of new mitochondria. Infowarsstore.com.
For years, Infowars has been reporting on the fact that the U.S. government is using U.S. tax dollars to support terrorist organizations abroad covertly. Of course, for quite some time, this was called a fake news, a conspiracy theory. But of course, now it's widely reported that this is indeed the fact. And now American lawmakers have actually introduced a so-called Stop Arming Terrorists Act. And this is a bill that's going to protect U.S. taxpayer dollars from being used to support and arm international terrorist groups through covert operations in third states. Now, it was introduced to the House Thursday by Democrat Tulsi Gabbard from Hawaii. The legislature aims to make it illegal for any U.S. government agency to assist extremist groups directly or indirectly in any way, shape, or form, be it through the sale of weapons, field training, or intelligence assistance. And I mean, think about how many weapons we have sold, given and accidentally dropped to these so-called moderate rebels who, of course, defected to ISIS or Al-Qaeda because they said that they had more power in the region. So here, this would have definitely affected the outgoing administration. But the submitters of the legislation argue that any nations or individuals that are cooperating with Al-Qaeda, the former Al-Nusra Front, or Islamic State should be barred from U.S. funding. They talk about the fact that if you or I were actually to give money, weapons, or support to Al-Qaeda or ISIS, we would be thrown in jail. Yet the U.S. government has been violating this law for years, quietly supporting allies and partners of Al-Qaeda, ISIL, and other terrorist groups with money, weapons, and intelligence support in their fight to overthrow the Syrian government. So this is happening, of course, and Tulsi Gabbard didn't hold anything back. She's accusing the CIA of providing weapons and money to terrorist groups all over the world through these covert operations with the help of Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Qatar, amongst others. And she, of course, referenced articles from the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, and others to support her claims. So they couldn't come out and say, oh, well, that's just conspiracy theories and fake news. No, she went directly to the main perpetrators of the fake news, these establishment outlets, of course, that are saying, hey, yes, indeed, we are funding and arming terrorists and trying to overthrow Assad out of Syria. Now, Tulsi Gabbard has also spoken out against a lot of the criticism that Donald Trump is facing for recommending 3 generals for some of his top picks. And she said she finds this incredibly offensive, that people are saying there isn't going to be enough oversight there, not enough citizen oversight of what's going on. So she said Thursday on CNN's The Lead that criticism of generals on the Trump cabinet is offensive. And listen to what she had to say.
As a veteran and as someone who's still serving in the Hawaii Army National Guard, I find it pretty offensive for people to outright discriminate against veterans. Here you have generals who have literally spent their whole lives serving our country, putting service before self, putting their lives on the line to defend democracy, and yet people are criticizing them and discriminating against them, saying just because you served as a general previously, you are disqualified from serving in a high position of leadership in our government.
And I can understand where some people might be concerned about, putting people who are incredibly powerful in the military in these very powerful positions. But look at the state of the world we are in. Look at the world as it's being handed to President-elect Donald Trump. And so, indeed, he's saying in order to make America great again, he made no bones about it. He wants to strengthen the military. And we need people in there who understand what's going on. I've listened to a lot of the talks from the people the staff picks that he's choosing, and they all seem to have a pretty good grasp, and it's not extreme as the media is trying to portray these people, that they're just going to go in and be these warmongers. In fact, they are saying we need to work with our allies. The U.S. itself doesn't need to get involved, but we need to be able to distinguish between the different groups that are there and use the help and aid of our allies to take these terrorist organizations out before they spread like cancer across the earth, which is presently what's happening. Now, in his final address to America's armed forces, President Obama, of course, is not trying to unite the country still. He's actually urging soldiers to question Trump's authority, criticize our president. He goes on to remind them that each of us has the universal right to speak your minds, to protest against authority, to live in a society that's open and free, that can criticize our president without retribution. Absolutely, there's no truer words have been said. This is why, even though you don't want the Kaepernicks out there to take a knee or whatever, but that's their right. I mean, they live in this country, and a lot of military veterans will say that that's why they fought, so that people like Kaepernick would have the right to take a knee and be disrespectful. That's the beauty of living in a free country. But the fact that Barack Obama uses his last address to the armed forces to tell them to question Donald Trump and to say the military's mission is a fight against violent extremism, insisting soldiers need to rise up against Trump if they feel he's pushing policies that are ill-considered, when this is a president who notoriously purged the military of top brass, top commanders who disagreed with his policies, that a lot of people were saying, what the hell is this SJW policies being shoved into the military? And some military and media sources put the Obama administration military purge, the terminations as high as 500. And that was just during his first 5 years in the Oval Office. So sure, yeah, he's suggesting to them, if you disagree with your president, then you should let him know. But, as Barack Obama has made clear, he'll just fire you and get rid of you if you speak out, or throw you in jail if you're a whistleblower. And, there again, projecting that sort of hypocrisy, do as I say, not as I do. Now, speaking of a lot of the hypocrisy and dangerous rhetoric that is going out there, we reported earlier in the week about an Orange Coast college teacher who was caught on tape giving this diatribe to her classroom, calling Trump's victory an act of terrorism. We're really back to being at civil war. She was suggesting that President Trump, president-elect, is a white supremacist. And she's telling her students that the difficult thing about this election loss is that the people who caused the assault are among us, as if Trump supporters are the enemy within. Talking about how relieved she is that she lives in progressive California, one of the best states, and kind of talks to the class about how she's going to be teaching them coping skills, how to cope with this election loss. Now, she is a human sexuality teacher, so I can only guess what those coping skills might be in her class, but what the hell is this kind of talk in a college class where you don't even know half those students might have voted for Donald Trump? So here you are insulting your students, insulting half the country who voted for him, saying that they're the enemy within and that everyone has to agree with your progressive agenda. Meanwhile, California is bankrupt, fiscally, if not morally in some places. But get this, the kicker is that it's the student who filmed this and uploaded it to YouTube that's actually facing expulsion. It's the student who is to blame. And what you have to understand is the progressive agenda, right? The 2030 progressive agenda is that everything you do, think, and say, even your dreams, are going to be out there for consumption, nothing to hide, zero privacy. So if this student is getting in trouble for filming this super progressive agenda, if that's what's considered bad, well, what is this teacher going to do in the future when everything's going to be out there for the world? And that's what you should be concerned about, because it's the conservative people who are being banned from campus. Anyone who doesn't agree with that liberal agenda, they're the ones who are being banned. They're the ones who are being expelled from school. And it's the thought police are rounding everyone up and telling you have to agree with this progressive agenda. If not, you're going to have the establishment media rallying around you, telling you that the new president incoming is a neo-Nazi who's going to be rounding up Muslim Americans and putting them in internment camps. So we have totally entered Wally World. I don't even know what's going to happen with the next 4 years, but you have to be very wary of the propaganda that's going to be coming out. We're going to get to that in just a minute. They're actually enacting some bills where they're going to be actively paying government organizations now to push out this counter propaganda. But just to let you kind of give you an idea of how screwed up these college kids are, there's like a totally lost generation. So there was a terrorist attack, of course, everyone knows, on OSU campus. And now the OSU Coalition for Black Liberation, it's a campus protest group, They held a protest outside the main campus there in Columbus. It was a rally to protest the death of young black men at the hands of police. They read off a list of these non-white men who'd been killed by police in the last 2 months. Among the names read off was that of Abdul Ali Artan, of course, the man who attempted to kill his classmates last week by attacking them with his car and then going on a stabbing spree. So he was gunned down by an OSU policeman. But organizers of the protest said that Artan's particular actions were irrelevant. It doesn't matter if you're a terrorist trying to commit a mass murder if you're black and a cop shoots you. That's wrong. You shouldn't do it. So this is where, we've talked a lot about how police officers are given a license to kill, and that's not right because they can arbitrarily kill people willy-nilly. And this is where, it's messed up that bad cops have now given good cops a bad name, and it has disabled them from being able to do their job, which is to serve and protect. And I'm sorry, when the cop shot this terrorist who was probably going to go on to kill a lot more people, stab a lot more people there on campus, he was doing his job, the thing that the citizens of the taxpayers there in Ohio are paying him to do. These kids are absolutely ridiculous. Ridiculous. Speaking of ridiculous, Hillary Clinton rolled out of bed in her purple pantsuit, the queen of fake news. She came out from under her rock to lecture Americans about the danger of fake news. We talked a little bit about this the other day. She says the epidemic of malicious fake news and false propaganda that flooded social media over the past year, it has real world consequences. It's really bad. This is a woman who voted for a war that was sold on fake news, a war that killed hundreds of thousands of people. This is also a woman who blamed Benghazi on riots due to a YouTube video, even though she knew right away that it was an act of terror. It was not because of some YouTube video, yet she rolled that out and the media ran with it, and they still refused to check her on it because they wanted this woman to become the next president. So they didn't check her lies, their little fact check. Of course, The Intercept reported about how one of the big fake news stories that came out, protecting Clinton, of course, was this claim with no facts or evidence whatsoever that the WikiLeaks emails were doctored or fabricated, and thus they should be ignored. MSNBC parroted that lie and said, you know what, no one should even look at these emails. They've been doctored. That would be something completely easy to prove. All you have to do is show the original email next to the WikiLeaks emails to prove that they'd been doctored. But they never did that. And the media never called them on that and said, well, wait a minute, you saying they'd be doctored or altered? How so? Where's the proof? They never checked them on that. They just let them roll with that lie because, again, they wanted Clinton in. And then, this is super hilarious, Brian Williams, okay, and this should just let you know how insane this is. Brian Williams, MSNBC's Brian Williams, bemoaned the prevalence of fake news. He said, there's been a lot of coverage in the real news about the growing and booming business of creating fake news. Brian Williams lost his position as NBC anchor in 2015 after he lied about being under RPG fire while in a helicopter during the Iraq War. Soldiers who were there said, what the heck are you talking about? That never happened. And it turns out afterward there were quite a few other stories that he, quote, misremembered. Remember, that's what Brian Williams called his lying or his fake news. He misremembered being under RPG fire. How do you misremember that? And then, of course, we had a congressman squaring off with Tucker Carlson. And he actually, the only defense he had that he was saying, he called Tucker Carlson a Russian agent on live television. Prime time, Tucker Carlson just laughed at him. He was asking for proof from that. He said, do you have proof that the Podesta emails were hacked by Russia? And the guy couldn't do it. He just kept saying over and over again, party of Reagan, party of Reagan. He was trying to get Tucker to embrace the neo-Cold War jingoism, but he could never say that if they had clear proof, clear evidence that Russia did indeed do it. So he just called Tucker Carlson a Russian agent. And then we have Sheriff David Clark, who is actually being considered for a spot on Trump's administration, have him calling out, slamming a liberal lawyer on Sean Hannity's show on Fox News, saying the hands up, don't shoot narrative was the birthplace of fake news. That was when it was born, and that there are dead cops because of that fake news story out of Ferguson. And like I mentioned, what people need to pay attention to. So we talked a little bit yesterday about a bill that just went through Congress that is going to be dealing with websites and what they deem to be hoax, fakes news. But now there is a new bill that has been announced. It's being pushed through the Senate, called the Countering Disinformation and Propaganda Act. It's part of fiscal year 2017 NDAA, and it's going to improve the ability of the United States to counter foreign propaganda and disinformation. They're going to establish an interagency at the State Department to coordinate and synchronize counter-propaganda efforts throughout the U.S. government. So they're going to be creating a whole organization, putting your tax dollars for NGOs, think tanks, civil society, and other experts outside the government, also known as journalists, who are going to engage in counter-propaganda related work. They say they're doing this because the U.S. government has been asleep at the wheel, but then why did they repeal the Smith-Mundt Act in 2013? In preparation for this, of course.
Our fellow InfoWarriors across the United States and across the planet really love the Hillary for Prison 2016 shirts that we began to put out in 2015. It became a global meme against globalism and corruption, and a very strong maxim that's now being continued on today. Now, President-elect Trump has come out and said it's not his job as president to call for prosecution. He's not supposed to. But that obviously Jeff Sessions, as the new Attorney General, if he's confirmed, will certainly carry out his duties. But Roger Stone a few weeks ago, right after the election, said, Alex, you got to bring Hillary for Prison back. And I said, yeah, but it's a limited edition. It's over. She's been defeated so far. And he said, what about Hillary for Prison 2017? We need those at the inauguration. They're trying to intimidate Trump supporters and nationalists everywhere. That shirt is powerful. It's not just a shirt supporting Trump, like your shirt that says Trump is my president, which we put out before he won, predicting it, putting our name, our guts on the line, but something exposing who the other team was pushing so that people don't forget and so that the push for justice continues. So it's a great way to support the broadcast. It's a great way to have another historic shirt to spread the word and to meet like-minded people of every race, color, and creed who bleed red blood and want justice. It's available. It's another limited run. I don't know how long we're going to offer it, but definitely only a few months. It is Hillary for Prison 2017, and here's the biggest and best part I almost forgot. This shirt arrived in an 18-wheeler, printed right here in the USA a week ago, and I forgot. I've been so busy to even talk about the fact it's been in the store. That on the back of the shirt is a design that I worked on with some of our great graphics people that is George Soros as a goblin. I made a goblin joke a year ago about Trump, saying you better not, actually get in bed with the goblins if he has to work with politicians, but I understand if he has to actually, get knee-deep in their political guts, but you just can't get caught in bed with a goblin. So we now have George Soros, because the media attacked me on this whole goblin meme. They've made huge jokes about it, but it's totally blown up in their face. We now have George Soros as a goblin on the back, and it says, with a cross through him, an X like Ghostbusters, no Soros, him as a goblin. It says Deport Soros on the bottom, and on the top it says Infowars established 1996. So it is a limited edition Deport Soros on the back, Hillary for Prison on the front, right-hand shoulder, Infowars.com. It's powerful. Hope you get out to everybody you know. Infowarsstore.com or call 888-253-3139. So to all the fellow liberty lovers around the world, I salute you and thank you for your support. This shirt is a celebration of the fight and the victory we've seen in 2016 against tyranny, but looking forward for justice against George Soros, Hillary Clinton, and their entire criminal network. And don't forget our new motto, no more pizza parties.